Okay, so I'd like to introduce Sharon, and she's going to talk about the consciousness of chemtrails and how we use orgone energy to diffuse that. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Sharon Schloss, and I've been working on this geoengineering issue for a long time. And one thing that's very important to understand is that we're now living in an age of a new type of warfare, and this isn't to scare you, because we have all the tools we need to live healthy and happy lives despite this. So I'm going to be talking about it in terms of what's going on and what we can do to solve the problem, to remove the geoengineering, to be healthy and live with clean skies and natural weather. So geoengineering is primarily an energetic war against us. It's this. A lot of people look at it as chemtrail spraying, which it is. So a lot of people have been noticing spraying in the sky. And we have had chemtrail spraying since the end of World War II. This is being done for weather modification and other purposes involving military use in warfare. And the weather modification is primarily done to create drought conditions or create superstorms. It can be used in a variety of ways, none of which are good, but like I said, we're actually ending it actively now. So this is a very misunderstood issue. Even people who know about chemtrail spraying a lot of time don't really know why it's being done or how it's affecting them. And I hear people throwing out things like it's for mind control, or it's to make us stupid, or it's to make us sick. And all these things are definitely part of it, but it's important to understand that the chemtrails you see are actually the visible component of an invisible war, which is energetic. And we're actually energetic beings. A lot of people are starting to understand that we're not just biological, but we actually contain an electrical system. So the main thing that people do know about geoengineering is that it has environmental impacts and it has health impacts. So when you're putting heavy metal nanoparticles in the sky dispersed by aircraft and then hitting them with electromagnetic frequencies which alter jet streams and change weather patterns, you're creating environmental havoc, and you're creating drought in California. And you're also creating health issues like neurological and respiratory ailments. So these are the things that people know. A lot of people know about chemtrails already. But what a lot of people don't know is that this is actually an attack on our consciousness, which can be won through love, it can be won through clear thinking, and it can be won through our own life force energy, which is orgone energy. So I'm going to be talking a lot about how we use orgone energy to remove geoengineering from the atmosphere, and actually it helps us as well by diffusing the negative energy that's used. So I think it's this is a story I have to tell. It's something that's maybe shocking to some people, but I feel like I should say it. I've been working with orgone for the last year and a half to diffuse chemtrails, and we've been very successful in Los Angeles in removing geoengineering using this energy. And back last month, in mid-August, there was a talk up in Redding, which was done by Geoengineering Watch. This talk was put on by Dane Wigington, who is a chemtrails expert and a climate expert. And there were many other speakers in the government and military who presented. And I was planning an event, and I publicized it, and it was called Occupy Geoengineering Watch. Now, that was a pretty shocking thing to Dane, because Dane Wigington's organization, as much as they've been educating people about the problem, have not really presented a solution, in my opinion. I'm not to say that he's not doing good work in getting the word out about geoengineering to very many people, but I found that there was nothing offered to solve the problem. So we went up there to just give out information about this wonderful free energy technology, which cleans the atmosphere and promotes rainfall. And he knew about it, and he contacted me and told me that I should not do this, and that it's not the appropriate forum for this, and that if I do it, I will be removed by the police. We went anyway, and we managed to hand out a lot of flyers just discreetly. I attended as a participant. I didn't make a big protest out of it, or anything like that. And we did hand out a lot of information before we were kicked out. But this is something that I do bring up because there are a lot of people who are aware of geoengineering, but not aware of the solution. And I felt that this was such a great opportunity to get a solution to so many people who need it, because Northern California is so bombarded by geoengineering every day. And I was surprised myself, but not completely surprised that he didn't want us there, because my email contact with him ended when I brought up Oregon Energy. That was the end. So, you know, I'm not going to say what the reason was, but it's very important to get these solutions out. It's important to know that there are people who are not necessarily interested in this. So I want to talk a little about Oregon Energy and what we do. So when they're putting geoengineering aerosols in the sky, these are heavy metal nanoparticles. They spread out, they cover the entire sky. They create a totally depressing pollution. Here are some pictures from my website. This is what Los Angeles looked like 2 years ago. We had terrible, terrible chemtrails. So they white out the sky, they spread out. It seems like there's nothing you can do about this. This is, you know, it's so depressing, right? Because when you can choose not to eat GMO food, and you can choose not to take vaccines, and you can choose to remove fluoride from your water. But when you see this, you think, what can I do? This is so depressing. And you feel the psychological aspects. For me, it was depression, anxiety, hopelessness. I felt all these terrible feelings when I'd see this, and anger. And the anger is not healthy. And I see that from a consciousness standpoint, when this stuff is put up in the sky and we see this, for many people, they don't even know it's there. You know, and so for them, they have a lot of work to do yet to get to where we are. But for those of us who see it, it can really undo a lot of our progress as beings, working on developing our consciousness, working on developing our love. We see this and it fills us with terrible feelings of anger because we feel like there's nothing we can do. But it's actually indeed our own love and our own life energy that will take care of this problem. So we used to have skies like this. Here's a few more. Okay. We would see these fine ripples. This is HAARP bombarding the geoengineering aerosols. And this is taken right here in Los Angeles before we started working with Oregon Energy. And I'm going to get more into what the Oregon is, but for now, let's look at before. This sky is trying, these clouds are trying to be clouds. But there's so much heavy metal aerosol up there and so much electromagnetic static going on. They're bombarding with electromagnetic radiation. So we ended up with skies like this. And other strange things, you know, colors, this sort of stuff. So we have an energy called Oregon. It's within all of us. It's in all living things. It's in the atmosphere. It's what ancient cultures called chi or prana. And in the 1930s, Dr. Wilhelm Reich discovered this energy. And he was able to measure it scientifically for the first time. So this was where science started to give validity to the beliefs of ancient cultures, and where science started to say, yes, this actually does exist. We have measured this. And what Wilhelm Reich did was when he found this energy, he realized that there was a way to pull it out of the atmosphere and channel it and collect it. And so he built what is called an Oregon accumulator, which he found that the alternating layers of wood and metal, organic and inorganic materials, when built into a box, would collect the Oregon out of the atmosphere. And he used this to treat cancer patients. So his goal with this was to use the life energy of the universe to increase people's life force and cure their cancer. And he did see his patients having great reduction in symptoms and pain. The other thing he did with this energy is he made a cloud buster, which was a device with metal pipes that would direct Oregon energy into the atmosphere and draw out what he called the deadly Oregon energy. So this was the beginnings of the use of this, and what he used that for was to promote rain. So I guess I want to talk about the consciousness aspects, but scientifically, what Oregon is it is our own living energy. And we can use it both to heal ourselves. Oregon energy can heal us, and it can heal the atmosphere. So I want to show you some pictures. So here's more. This picture here was taken at the end of a heavy spray day, and this is what I'd say this is like a Beijing sunset or a Beijing sky. It looks like smog, but it's not. This is after a heavy day of bombardment. So when we live under conditions like this, what kind of feelings do we feel? We feel hopeless, but we also have the health effects of an energetic war on us and a chemical war on us. So you're having heavy metals that you're absorbing into your body through the air. You're having bombardment of electromagnetics. So geoengineering would not work without electromagnetic radiation. So that's where I want you to understand that it is not just a chemical war, but it's an energetic war, which is won with energy. So there's no reason to feel hopeless. We don't really see skies like this anymore here in LA, and we're spreading this around to other places. Here's another. So that's what we were looking at. Okay. What I have found through working with orgone, so I'm going to just talk briefly because I want to just do a Q&A. I don't really have much time to talk. I was supposed to talk for 2 hours, and now I'm talking for 1. So I just want to make sure that I just get this information out about orgone. So what we do to use Wilhelm Reich's technology today is we make simple devices called orgonite, which use the same things that he used, and this emits that energy all the time. Orgonite is made with metal shavings, copper coil, add a quartz crystal or any type of crystal, and this is put in a resin. And when the crystal is put in the resin and the resin catalyzes around it, it puts a compression on it, a pressure, that activates the properties of the crystal, the piezoelectric properties. So it actually strengthens the orgone energy that's put out by the crystal. And the metals and the copper coil help to put that out there. The copper also collects a lot of the dangerous energy and pollutants out of the atmosphere. So in the presence of orgone, a good way to understand what's happening is to look at the sky, because sometimes it's hard to know. You're holding it and you're like, is anything happening here? I can't feel anything. So we started working with orgonite back in April of 2014. It was on a very, very heavy spray day. The first day we made 6 pieces. And the effect it had was within 15 minutes of making the first 6 pieces, we saw the geoengineering aerosols over our house just disappear. And when we looked out in the neighborhood and walked around for about a mile, within an hour, there was a circle of blue over our house in every direction. So if you're used to seeing chemtrails kind of spreading out and covering the sky, in the presence of orgone, they actually twist and break because the vortex that's created by this energy is a pushing and pulling that literally throws the geoengineering into space. And actually a great source for information on this is Ken Rolla. He's an electrical engineer that also works with orgone energy and orgone devices. He calls it scalar energy, which is the same thing. This is what it does. You're going to see atmospheric changes. So this is the work we're doing here in LA. And you'll see things like this that happened over my house. You'll see spirals because the shape of the wave is spiraling. And it literally is just pulling and pushing this pollution out of the sky. So this is the kind of stuff that we've seen in the last year, and we've seen a return of rainfall. We've seen a quieting of the energy in Los Angeles because we've been distributing hundreds of these small orgonite pieces around the city and actually around the state as well. On the trip to Redding, we distributed 300 orgonite pieces from Los Angeles all the way up to Redding and into Grass Valley. So this is another effect of orgonite. So another example, you'll see the sky opening up, and you'll see what happened here was somebody had an orgonite chembuster, which is the orgonite base with 6 pipes, and you'll see the same pattern every time. 6 dots where the pipes are. So this is what it does. It's powerful energy. So I want people to know that there's nothing to fear with geoengineering anymore. And I know it sounds really strange, but we have a year and a half's worth of data on what we've done with this, and it's remarkable when you see these clouds softening and being removed from the HARP ripples. You could clearly see the difference between this and a HARP sky that's just flat. This is where we're removing the toxins. So we've been seeing a return of rainfall. And here's another one. I feel like I'm racing through it, but I actually want to do a lot of time for Q&A on this because, it's very important. So here's another example of what it does. It's literally pulling it's removing the water vapor from the toxic heavy metals. It just removes them from the sky, and we're left with clean water vapor and rainfall. And again, this is what it looks like as the HARP ripples are sort of disintegrating. As that stuff is removed from the sky, we see a return of clouds. And once they're freed from that electromagnetic pollution, you'll see a very clean sky. So, and this is right here in Los Angeles. This is last September. And we've been working with Orgonite just for about a few months at that point. So the way it works is the Orgone energy removes the pollution and it neutralizes EMF. So like I said, there's two components to geoengineering. We have the spraying, but the more important component is the energy that's used. And this Orgone energy is the opposite of what their energy is. Their energy is deadly. It's called deadly Orgone radiation. And Wilhelm Reich actually discovered this long ago, that our Earth has been subjected to deadly radiation for a very long time. This comes in many forms. It comes from nuclear tests and nuclear explosions. There's been like 2,000 nuclear explosions on this planet. It comes from that. It comes from cell phone towers nowadays. It comes from smart meters. It actually comes from all of our wireless devices, and we're surrounded by what's called a deadly Orgone radiation. But when we use positive Orgone radiation from Orgone devices, you can actually negate these dangerous effects because it restructures what's coming out. So you're going to have chaotic waves of EMF bombarding us, bombarding our sky, but we can actually convert it using Orgone. You can restructure that wave and it will be quieter and it will no longer have an effect on the atmosphere. So I guess I said a lot really quickly. I hope that it makes sense. Because what we're looking at here is ultimately, we're seeing it as a manifestation in the sky, but ultimately, this is about us and it's about our world. We're under attack by something. It could be, you could say it's the government, you could say it's above the government, but you could say it's corporations, but clearly there's an energetic battle going on right now, and everybody is trying to increase their consciousness and live a happy life and find why we're really here. What are we really here for? And when we're consistently bombarded from every side by these kinds of toxic energies and metals, which work hand in hand, we find it very hard to have a clear mind. We find it very hard to think straight. So what we're doing here is something that you can see visually in the sky, but that you can feel mentally and emotionally in your own heart. We're actually using this energy to free ourselves. I use Orgonite in my home, and I use it outdoors. In the home, we use it to neutralize EMF. And it's also very important in your home to reduce EMF sources, like get the Wi-Fi out or turn it off, cordless phones, cell phones. These are things we should try to do without as much as possible. Smart meters are a major source of this, and anyone can opt out of that by calling the power company. There are many sources of electromagnetic pollution. Those compact fluorescent light bulbs are a source of electromagnetic pollution. And the reason that we need to remove this is it does affect our thinking, it affects our bodies, because it disrupts cellular communication within the body. It causes cancer. It makes it hard to sleep. It makes it hard to relax. So we use this energy to neutralize all that. And when you have Orgonite in your house, you're transforming the wave. So even though it's still there, it's far less harmful. And we use it in the field to reduce the radiation all around us from cell towers and HARP, but mostly cell towers. That's mostly what's in our communities affecting us and creating a dangerous atmosphere. There's a clear connection between the energy and the geoengineering. So this energy creates an unhealthy atmosphere for us, and it also makes the atmosphere more conducive to geoengineering. So what we're doing is we're just removing it. We're removing it, and it's allowing the natural weather patterns to return and allowing ourselves to be healthy again. I really just want to go into questions and ask if, yes, you have any questions on this energy? They are being thrown into space out of the atmosphere. And it's interesting to see that when you see the funnel-shaped clouds, like what I showed you, you're seeing that manifesting in the atmosphere. So you can actually visualize the orgone energy when you look at the clouds. When you see a spiraling cloud, have you guys seen clouds where the bottoms are dropping out lately? That never existed in my childhood. Some of the strange clouds we're seeing now are the result of geoengineering, but some of them are the results of orgone energy acting against geoengineering. So when people have that helpless feeling like every weird cloud is them doing it to us, that's not the case. There's a network of people distributing tens of thousands of orgone devices all over California, all over the country, and all over the world. And when you see strange cloud forms, a lot of the time, this is us fighting back. So it's not to despair when you see this. Yes? Yes. Into space. And that's the part that was hard for me to understand. Because when I see it, I'll go back to, I'm going to go back to that funnel. This is ultimately the result that we had. This was, by the way, after 1 week of working with orgone energy, we had this. Literally 1 week. I hear Skype. Okay, here, we're back to the funnel. So this is the kind of cloud that I'm talking about. They were spraying chemtrails, and there were geoengineering aerosols in the sky. And with the use of orgone energy, this was literally over my house, where we had hundreds of pieces, these kind of spirals form. And it looks like it's pulling it down. But what the electrical engineer Ken Rolla says about this is it's actually throwing it out into space. Because a lot of people have concerns that it's falling to Earth. You know, and then when you negatively ionize to remove pollution, it does fall. But this is a scalar wave. The orgone energy is a scalar wave that creates a scalar wave vortex. So it's like a pushing and pulling. It looks like it's pulling, but that stuff just goes away. And based on how much green grass we've seen and regreening of deserts over this last winter, I don't see that the toxins are falling, although I haven't done a sample. But soil samples are actually not a great test for heavy metals because aluminum is naturally present in soil. So rain tests and water tests are far more accurate. That's what it is doing, is it is just throwing it out there. Did you have a follow-up to that? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. They're hitting one specific place with HAARP it's an ionospheric heater that superheats one part of the atmosphere, and that's how they're affecting the weather changes, along with the metal particles up there. But you know, all I know about it is that it's thrown up into space, and my knowledge on it, as far as how it goes up into space, it ends there. So I wish I could tell you where it goes after it goes, but what I do see is that it goes. And that's what I do see, is that it goes. And these waves are faster than the speed of light, and this is something that, why I'm talking about the consciousness aspect included in this, is it's something that kind of transcends the science that we know. It's a very new science, and so where it goes, All I know is it goes, and it goes up into space. Where it goes from there, I don't know. I don't have one handy because I didn't, since my talk was cut down, I didn't prepare my PowerPoint, but I can pull one up at the end. I'll pull up a picture of it. Oh, I should actually use the microphone for you guys.
So what I was thinking was, it's a question and also maybe a thought about what happens when essentially the transmutation takes place. Maybe something happens on a molecular level that charges the medical particles differently, allowing them to pass through the ionosphere. Because it does something to the nature of it, I would imagine, at that point.
Yeah, this is where it gets a little hazy because this is so new, but we're seeing what's called transmutation, and you're seeing a changing of energy, and this is something that really does need a lot more study and a lot more scientists to look into more specifically, because what Wilhelm Reich discovered, and I'm working off of what he discovered, and when Wilhelm Reich made these discoveries in the 1950s, he was using orgone energy for the first time in Arizona to bring rain and end drought conditions. And it does get hazy at this point because he's observing this deadly energy that was hovering in the atmosphere. And he saw this all across the country as he was traveling. And in Arizona and Tucson, it was specifically the most heavy of this deadly energy. And when he used the Cloudbuster, what he did was he drew off of it to draw in what he was terming as deadly orgone radiation, which made a haze. And so we're still learning about this because a lot of the haze we see a dark haze over the ocean now sometimes that we didn't see when I was younger. And a lot of the dark haze you see is actually caused by the radiation from these electromagnetic facilities like HAARP, like the underwater military bases, like cell towers. And so a lot of what we look at and think as smog is actually the visual manifestation of a deadly energy, which still needs a lot of study. What he found by using orgone energy against this deadly energy was that it diffused it, that it removed it and changed it. And it is still, I don't want to say this is in the mystical realm, but it's still a very new idea to understand how this transmutation takes place. What we do know is this. We know that it removes the toxins. We know that it is a negatively ionizing technology which cleans the air. And with that, there does come the concern that some of the stuff is falling. But what I do see with it from results for a year and a half, and I can only share what I've seen personally, is I see that the toxins get removed and we have a return of cumulus clouds. And you can actually see the process of this happening. It's a separation. And there's something very life-giving about orgone to where I feel in my heart and in my consciousness that I trust in this energy because it is my own energy. Orgone energy is our own life energy. We're learning now how to access and increase and amplify what's already in us. And so the science of it needs work and it needs to be more looked into, but there is a science behind it, and the negatively ionizing properties are what remove pollution and remove it kind of negates what's coming out of the cell towers, which are positive ions. Positive ions are spare electrons. There's too many electrons in our atmosphere from all of this electromagnetic radiation going on. And this inhibits the hydrogen bond. So you can't have hydrogen bond forming to create water molecules and cloud formation in the presence of these deadly energies. This we do know, and we do know that negatively ionizing the atmosphere reverses that and promotes the hydrogen bond. We're removing the positive ions from all these electromagnetic devices, and we're restoring negative ions, which are healthy for us. They make us feel relaxed. That's why people use Himalayan salt lamps. And they also help our atmosphere. And I say, as above, so below. We see the same effects in the atmosphere that we see in our bodies. So these are the things I do know about it. And I do know that I trust in the energy because it is our energy. And we've been so suppressed through this bombardment for so long. We've been like a prisoner race of humans for so long, and we wonder why. And is it what we eat? Partly, but there's so much more. It's what we think, it's what we're taught. It's this energy, that we're energetic beings. So if we're energetic beings and we're bombarded with an energy in the megahertz and gigahertz that's incompatible with our own energy system, which is Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, we're not going to feel ourselves. It's just not possible. These frequencies on the physical level tear DNA strands. They mutate and destroy red blood cells. They cause them to clump up, change shape. They cause leaky gut syndrome. They cause the blood-brain barrier to break down. There are many things that EMF causes to us physically. What does it do to us consciously as energetic beings with an energetic heart, with an electromagnetic field that affects the quantum field around us? We know that we're being affected. We know we're not all we can be. I really believe in my heart that through the distribution of orgone devices, which we've done hundreds in Los Angeles and a couple of thousand in California, and we're not the only ones, that we're actually negating so much of the negative energy, not only restoring the atmosphere, that's what you could see, but what can you feel? We've distributed orgonite to the most impoverished regions. We've gone into South LA on bikes. We've gone all over, Compton, Southgate, Paramount, everywhere. We've neutralized one by one.
Compton with bike?
Yes, Compton with bike.
Wow.
And in fact, we both, on our second excursion to Compton, we both got flat tires on the same day and had to walk them to the Blue Line and ride back into Hollywood to the bicycle co-op to learn how to fix our flats. So we've worked hard to distribute orgonite. Well, I'm not saying that for an applause, but we do distribute orgonite. And I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a science behind it and there's a spirituality behind it. And they're merging. And we're starting to learn that there's a connection between the science of it and the heart energy here. So when we distributed orgonite to these areas of South LA, we've seen a difference. And actually, Bree, who was right here, she told me her neighborhood's gotten quieter. Yes, Bree lives in South LA. Do you want to say how your neighborhood's changed in the last few months? Because you told me this, but not knowing that I had done it with Gabe, that we had put out the orgonite.
It's amazing, the difference. I know that there's a lot of, I live in South Central Los Angeles, and I've been there for 13 years off and on, and it's very chaotic because people are rivaling with each other, and a lot of it comes down to just, poverty, but of course the neighborhood's getting more gentrified. That doesn't necessarily affect the people that have been there for years in a good way. It actually makes them more angrier and resentful. So, but I guess since the since the implementation of the orgonite, that it's definitely affecting everyone. And it can't be a placebo effect because they don't even know what's happening. So everyone just kind of smiles and says hi and, hey girl, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing good, okay. Not, hey, come talk to me. Why aren't you talking to me, girl? It's like everyone's just nice now. Everyone's just real sweet.
That's really nice to hear. That's really nice to hear because I went down into that area with Gabriel, who's my partner, and we do this together. And the amount of cell towers in that neighborhood was off the charts. And the crazy ones, too, the ones with many layers of panels. And I was seeing how different populations, certain populations are more targeted than others. We're all targeted. Certain populations are more targeted than others. The weekend before last, Gabriel and I went with our friend Harold Lunt, who is going to be one of the panelists on the Orgone Energy panel on Sunday. So we're going to actually get way more into this on Sunday. This is kind of a brief intro into Orgone Energy. I know I was told that I was going to be talking about chemtrails. I think it's much more important to talk about getting rid of chemtrails when we don't have much time to talk, because chemtrails alone take forever to talk about. But what we did 2 weekends ago, we went to San Bernardino. I have had my eye on San Bernardino for a long time. We distributed 125 tower busters to this city, targeting cell towers primarily, and surrounding towns in Riverside, on the way, Rialto, all those places on the way. The energy that we experienced, and I can say this just from what I was feeling and what Gabriel and Harold were feeling, the energy in some places was so depressed. We went in this one park that had 2 cell towers in one park, no barriers even around them, children playing, families, barbecues. I literally felt the ceiling. I could feel it. There was an energetic ceiling. These are the same things Wilhelm Reich was feeling all the way back in the 1950s. And this has been on our planet a long time. The source of it may be something beyond our Earth, because there's some force, and he made a connection because he saw UFOs at the same time that he would experience this deadly energy. There may be a connection to it beyond our Earth, this deadly energy in these programs. But I'm not going to get so into that right now. I can tell you that I was feeling the ceiling. And that's what he called it. And it's so funny because I felt these feelings, and I read his book, Contact with Space. He used the exact same words I did to describe the same phenomenon, which is, he would call it a DOR ceiling, or a DOR pocket. That means a deadly orgone radiation ceiling or a deadly orgone radiation pocket. He would feel areas that were very impacted by this negative energy. And those were the areas he targeted to try to remove it. In this park, we did our work. We neutralized the towers with orgonite, and we used an earth pipe because it was so heavy that we used an orgone pipe, a copper pipe containing orgonite in the earth, because we're not just needing to heal the atmosphere, we need to heal the electromagnetic lines of the earth, the ley lines of our earth, the grid. It's no secret when you look at cell phone towers to see that they are laid out in a grid. What do they call the smart meters? The smart grid. They're gridding us. They're gridding us with deadly energy. How do we win? How do we win? We win with love. We win with orgone energy.
They're dumbing us down.
They,
Energy level.
they are trying. They are trying and they are failing. They are trying and they are failing, and that is why they're freaking out right now.
I traveled to Middle East the moment I landed from Europe and America. It's a different world. You don't have GMO attacks, cyber, wireless, chemtrails, nothing. So your body changes.
There are chemtrails everywhere, actually.
So you say
However,
Africa-
when you're, yes, and in Africa, that is very, very interesting that you bring up Africa. Africa has been a target by the parasitic rulers for a very, very long time. I feel that this has something to do with our origins in Africa. But this land has been so abused, and the people have been so abused. And there are hidden wars on Africa, besides the wars that we know about. And we know about the history. And we know about slavery. We know about the colonization of European powers in Africa. But what many people don't know is about the energetic war against Africa. In the last 14, 15 years, George Ritschel and his group, Organize Africa, has distributed tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of orgonite devices all over Africa. He is an extremely dedicated individual, and I definitely recommend you look up Organize Africa. There's a link to it on my site. My site is thekembo.com. You can come to us at our booth and get our information, but I have links to many people's websites who do this work. And the reason I'm here at this event is to share orgone, is to share the solution. What they did in Africa was so amazing. There are cell towers there too. The drought, they were choked by a drought for decades. And we think of Africa as just being a dry continent, a poor continent. Africa is vibrant. The land is strong, the energy is strong. They can grow so many kinds of food there. They do not need Monsanto seeds. But in a drought condition, which is one of the goals of geoengineering, is drought, which is caused by the chemtrail spraying and the radiation that they use. Since they want to make a world that's a desert, and they want to make us buy GMO seeds that are resistant to drought and resistant to soils acidified by aluminum that they're spraying. In Africa, there's been such a war on that continent. We know that Bill Gates wants Africa. He's promoting Monsanto there. And I mean, even Bono of U2, all these people are now promoting the GMO agenda in Africa. And this continent is self-sufficient. They don't need the GMO seeds. They don't need their agricultural heritage destroyed. They deserve their food sovereignty. And by removing the deadly energy, which is what George Ritchell and his organization did, they had a return of rainfall. Amazing crop yields. There's a wonderful talk by George you could listen to. It was at the Breakthrough Energy Movement conference, Global BEM, and he speaks about the work they did in Africa. And he's like me. I mean, I guess I'm like him because I'm way after him, but I do the same thing he does. I'm learning from him. I'm learning through the people before me, like Don Croft, who started the gifting movement. And we're going to talk way more about this on Sunday. But I'm learning from what he did, and we're doing the same thing here. And if you listen to this talk, he will show you the same kind of clouds that I'm showing you, and he'll tell you about the crop yields increasing and the rainfalls, and it's just a miracle. It is a miracle that we have this energy.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Thank you. When you say you go other parts of the world, you have the chemtrails. We know not everywhere the chemtrailing. So you're saying the clouds would travel across the oceans?
Most of the geoengineering, I'm going to pull up another page for you guys since I'm just online here. Most of the geoengineering is distributed far north, top, most of what we get here, I should say, is distributed at that far top left corner. And a lot of it is distributed over the ocean. And so what you're seeing on this map is you're seeing a lot of this white and blue you're seeing is actually geoengineering. And I say this from years of observation of these maps and experience. The colorful areas that you see are rainstorms. This is a water vapor loop from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And most of the white stuff you're seeing is geoengineering. So this is actually, yes, you are correct. They are putting huge amounts of it over the ocean that blow around, that move around, and that can be manipulated. But there are actually people gifting the ocean now with Oragonite. Wow. And that is where we next want to go with this project. Yay! That's great.
The last thing we heard, Japanese are arguing why they're chemtrailing our skies.
Why are they?
No, Japanese people were arguing on the news agency.
Oh, they were talking about it publicly.
They didn't know they keep seeing some planes are chemtrailing.
There seems to be more awareness that it's going on now, and I think it's something that people can't ignore. Obviously, I mean, we go for years and years seeing this chemtrails, and everybody thinks we're crazy because we say we see them, and our relatives and our friends tell us, no, that you're a complete nutcase, which is actually, in fact, part of the psychological warfare that I talk about with this. These chemtrails, besides the physical and environmental effects, cause us emotional effects like I was talking about earlier. But it's also an alienation that you feel when you're the one that sees it and others don't. And for them, it's working on that physical level. It's doing what the goal is. It's getting in their system. It's making them unhealthy. It's making them easy to control. But for us who see them, those people just think we're crazy, and we feel alone, and we feel alienated, and no one wants to talk about it. And if you post about it on Facebook, everybody will say you're nuts, and you'll get blocked by your family. I don't use Facebook, but I've heard stories. Anyway, that's part of the psychological aspect, is to feel alone, to feel helpless, to feel hopeless. For those of us who know, we are of an increased consciousness. We have the consciousness to see them. Some people will look up and they'll be there and they say, I don't see it. Their mind just isn't there. They just don't see things the same way we do. It really is that integrated with the mind. It really is that involved. And we can be that involved by activating our own minds, which is why we use orgone. Ultimately, the goal here is we don't need it. We don't need the orgone. We're so energetically strong in our own orgone, in our own bodies and minds, that we can diffuse them ourselves. I already do this, and I know others who do. The way you do this, now you guys are going to think I'm a little woo-woo here, but the way that I do this is, okay, well, it's important to look at this scientifically, but it's also important to look at this from a consciousness standpoint. Now, science is validating these points. if you listen to Greg Braden, he talks about the electromagnetic field of the heart. Prayer works. It actually works, and it's not just a spiritual idea. It is a scientific idea as well. So what I'm saying is this. I see them spraying. I'll see him putting his line, and I will look at him and I'll say, you don't control me. I control you. And the spraying stops immediately. So that is something to cultivate. It doesn't necessarily work all the time. You know, the other day, 2 days ago, they bombarded us. It was on 3 days ago. We got bombarded very, very, very heavily because there was a rain coming. There was a rain over the ocean. We had a 50% chance of rain the week before. But they bombarded more heavily than we could diffuse. The rain wasn't strong enough, and their bombardment was heavy. But this is one loss for us. It's not really a loss. I don't look at it that way. Because every time they do this, they're wearing themselves out. Every time they do this, it's very expensive for them and it's very cheap for us. These things, now this is a fancy one, okay? This one costs more because I use this very pretty resin as very pretty quartz point. But you can come to our booth and see the cheap ones. The cheap ones are what we make to distribute in the field. They work just as well. It's an energy device. It's a free energy device. It works constantly. Once you make it, it works forever. We distribute these everywhere, hide them very well, discreetly, quickly. And we're turning the energy everywhere by doing this. So even people who don't believe in it and don't know about it are having their hearts opened by it. So even people who are living under bombardment of dangerous energies and having their hearts closed by that, we come in with Orgonite. And we'll go and we'll drop one in the bushes by the cell tower.
Teacher, question.
Their neighborhood transforms.
The nanoparticles that they're dropping,
Yes.
do they get absorbed through our bloodstream?
They do, and that's why we need to remove them. We are absorbing them through our breathing. So when they're spraying, we're breathing it in. And we are becoming conductive. We're taking in heavy metal nanoparticulates, tiny particles. You can line up 60 of these to one cell. That's how small they are. We breathe them in. They get in our lungs. They get past the blood-brain barrier. And yes, we are breathing these in, and they make us more conductive and more susceptible to the electromagnetic bombardment. Our own cell phones are doing this to us. If you're using a cell phone and you're full of heavy metals, you are really in trouble. But we know how to remove them. So that's the positive thing here is when we get them out of our atmosphere, as we've done here in LA, we create such a clean air that we aren't no longer inhaling them or absorbing them in our skin, but we need to chelate them out of the body.
What if you put a thin Orgonite on cell phone? Does it do anything?
I use, yes. I buy this at freshandalive.com. That's Ken Rolla's site.
Oh, back up.
I'm
You're talking
always
too fast for old people. What?
Oh, at Ken Rolla's website, freshandalive.com. I'm always advertising Ken because he has great products. He sells a little EMF harmonizer, tiny little thing, and you put it in the battery compartment of your phone. I do. It's pretty much Orgonite for your phone. It's made of tiny particles of quartz and metal, and they're cheap. They're about $17. I don't sell it, but he does at freshandalive.com. And so I use that with the phone, and I don't use a Wi-Fi at my house. But if you do have a Wi-Fi, you can place an Orgonite on it to neutralize the signal. It will not get rid of it. It will transform it and make it quieter. I recommend removing these sources of EMF because you're still getting it from outside. No. I mean, this is great. This is great for home. You would get by on one with that. I'd like to take some more questions. I'd like this to be more of a discussion than a lecture now.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll be ever so brief because I could talk an awful long time and I won't. I'm from the UK, especially for the conference, and I've got Dave and Eric kindly let me put some flyers out on a table. What's the question? It's not a question, well it is, yeah. It's all I want to do is to compliment what Sharon's been saying. I'm wearing her pendant that she she sold me yesterday. I've also, and I love it, and it really does. We have to look after ourselves, and it really works. I'm a pendulum dowser. I've doused just what the EMFs do to the body, because we are the Schumann resonance, we are the earth, we are the oceans, we want salt in our bodies, sea salt, and it really does, it messes up our DNA, knocks the strands back to 2, where we've been switching them on gradually with our waking up. It also depresses the heart chakra, because it affects the pineal gland and the thymus, and this is all by design. So, do get one of these pendants. They are, and also scalar pendant. I've got 3 now, which I love, and the Princess Diana Essene channeled pendant. The Essene symbol works. So you've got a lovely choice, but the cheapest and you can get them for children, little ones, can't you? Are the Orgonite. So out of all of them, if I was choosing, it'd be the Orgonite.
Well, thank you very much for talking about the pendants. It's a very nice idea to wear Orgonite. I do it every day, everywhere I go, because everywhere we're bombarded.
Is there any measurement for that particular thing that you could carry around? Is there any unit of measurement that that Orgonite should have in order to be effective?
Oh, you mean how far does it go? These little ones, they don't go very far. I just use it just for myself. Something like this will go many feet around. Something like this, it's really, really hard to measure the distance. I have to just go based on observation. And so what I've been doing for the past year and a half is when we do a specific project distributing Orgonite, I just keep track of how many did we do and what did we see. So it's very hard to measure how far it goes. Something like this could easily go many feet around, many feet in any direction. One of these alone, I was standing at a street corner on a heavy chemtrail day for 20 minutes waiting for the bus. One of this size took care of everything above me and for at least a mile around from what I was observing for 20 minutes. Because in that space of time, the chemtrails went away and the clouds came in. It's very hard to measure how far. So that's why we just grid them with great regularity so that they're everywhere and can grid with each other. That way, if you have one in your house, if you live in LA, we've taken care of whatever tower's near you. So that'll grid and you'll have the additional protection. Yes? Oh, if you have a smart meter? Well, yeah, I highly recommend opting out. If you have LADWP, it's free and easy. You call them, and no matter who your utility provider is, you can opt out of the smart grid, which is very important to do. I'm going to talk more about the smart grid tonight at the Agenda 21 panel. There's so much to talk about on this topic. It's kind of huge. So as far as that goes, we'll talk more about that tonight. It's very important to opt out. And if you do have one, you want to shield it. With a smart meter shield, you can look this up online, and people are selling these, or you can make one yourself, simply out of aluminum foil and other metal materials on the outside. But the most important thing is that you opt out. It's not just a matter of the energy, it's a matter of using you want to practice non-compliance. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't want to just heal the energy. You want to tell them, no, I don't accept this. Yes, your sovereignty. So you want to reclaim your own human sovereignty.
Talking exactly about that. You want to get rid of the smart meters. I have a triplex and a few other plexes, but I'd like to have my tenants opted out. But how can I do that when I don't live there? How can I, like, there's 4 smart meters on the side of a building. I live in one of the units, but there's 3 other ones. And how can I get rid of other tenants when I'm not the tenant, when I don't live there?
Well, I have a great idea for you, but it doesn't involve education. Actually, it involves completely bypassing everybody, which is what I do with Orgonite. A lot of the time I bypass everyone. I don't need to convince this guy the chemtrails are happening, for instance, because I know how to get rid of them. In the case of your tenants, you could educate them. You could try, but they might not be willing to go through the trouble. You can take over their electric service, include it in the rent. Just say, a flat rate that you add to the rent. Like I get water included in my rent. It's just included in the price of rent. So going forward with new tenants, you could say, I'm going to pay all utilities. You're the utility holder. You can have them all taken out and just include it in the rent. That's a way to completely bypass. I always think, how can I get around everybody? That's why we do this. Maybe you can have a discussion with them and say, would you be willing to have your smart meter removed? Maybe you could offer to help with that in some way if it's difficult for them. The fact is it's very easy to have them removed. Oh, okay. Southern California Edison charges a fee. Oh, and incidentally, I've seen their little newsletter with their utility bill. They had a newsletter about EMF and how it's completely harmless.
I just wanted to address that. We did opt out of ours, and I think they're charging $10 a month extra. We do have a smart meter shield by a company that makes them. It happens to be Safe Connect. I think there's 2 or 3 others that make them, and they're very affordable for people that do not want to make it. So there's things out there, absolutely. And as far as being a property owner, just go ahead and put the smart meter shield on it and don't say anything because it's inside the box so that an animal doesn't pull it off or chew it. You know, that kind of thing. You kind of hide them in there and it does the job.
Thank you. I love this discussion. I love that everybody has so many great ideas.
May I make an announcement regarding Los Angeles Skywatch? Okay. There is a group in LA called Los Angeles Skywatch, and we do programs and give talks, and we go to the community and do tablings and marches. So I will pass this around. Yes, yes. I will pass this this information around, and please join us. We need you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay, great. You do have the. Oh, Kate Bush. Here's the picture of Kate Bush. Well, it's hard to see. You might want to pass it around. Yes. Oh, for anybody who wants to get our information, yes, there's a booth in the first room, and you can grab a card. Yeah, and you'll see the organites at the table. Yes, thanks. Okay, yes. Well, it's very hard to see this from here, but maybe we can pass it around. Anyway, this is a picture actually from Kate Bush's video, which I love, Kate Bush. The song Cloud Busting. She wrote a song about Wilhelm Reich. In 1985, she wrote a song about Wilhelm Reich and his work with Oregon Energy, and it was from the point of view of his son Peter. And it was about how the government took him away. He was taken away. His lab was destroyed after he made the rain with his cloudbuster. His lab was destroyed. His work was destroyed. His books were burned. He was put in jail, and he died in jail in 1957. So this is actually a very beautiful video, and I have it on my website. It's called Cloud Busting by Kate Bush. And I have a lot of information about all of these things. You can click on a lot of links and learn about Wilhelm Reich. You can learn about his research and work. It's a lot to learn, and so I think I'm trying to give you just a brief intro to let you know that even if you don't know how it works, and even I don't really fully know everything about how this works, obviously, and it's still something that's so new to so many people, we know it works. That's what we know. And so even if you don't know how, it's just you have it and you see it working. Another question?
Hi, I've been trying to see if I could make these. The problem is when I get on the internet, after an hour, I'm totally confused because I know it works. The problem is you can really mess up and and I don't know enough about it. The people were putting different things in there, like the copper coil. They said it has to go a certain way. So there's all these things. So is it when, I mean, you probably don't have time. I do have time. It's a very important question. Yes, it is. Thank you.
This is an extremely important question. There are a lot of people who are posting things about Orgonite online, and they're posting how to make Orgonite. I have a video on my page that you can go to. Is the easiest to make Orgonite this way. You can learn it from me. Actually, Crystal made Orgonite with my recipe. And anyone can do it. And so I know that some people want to make their own, and I actually recommend it because when you use Orgonite and have it, you feel the effects and you see the effects, but when you make it, it is so much different. My mind has completely been transformed by it. I am a different person than I was before I started. Wilhelm Reich noticed the same thing in his work. He could no longer communicate with regular people in the way that you see people communicating out in the world. He found everything to be so frivolous. You know, he found parties, bars, social scenes. He couldn't even handle it anymore because his mind was so transformed by this life-changing energy. So what I want to say about making Orgonite is it's a very, very valuable thing to do. Having it is great. Making it is even better. And my video is very easy to follow, and I recommend it. It's about 20 minutes long. It's the most basic recipe with the most easy materials. There is no right or wrong way to coil. There are a lot of people out there that want to scare you from trying things. And there's a lot of improper information. And it's very hard to find the right stuff, and you have to be discerning. So I put on my website links to what I thought were the most, the best sources for correct information on making Orgonite and using Orgonite. But yes, all you need is resin, any crystal, one crystal, fine metal shavings, and a copper coil, clockwise or counterclockwise. It doesn't matter. Some people don't even use a copper coil. I recommend it. The copper coil makes it work better. It makes it stronger, but that's it. It's simple. And when people say there's a right and wrong way and the crystal has to point this way and that way, and it really doesn't, although certain shapes direct energy differently. Like a pyramid is a very excellent shape for directing energy, and this particular one uses what they call the holy hand grenade design, where you have one quartz crystal pointing upward at the top, and at the underneath base you have 4 quartz crystals, in this case amethysts, which are kind of quartz, pointing in 4 directions. That is a nice design. It's not necessary though. I didn't bring a tower buster with me, I should have. In the simple tower busters, it's just a massive metal, they're in the other room, you can go over there and see them. It's a massive metal shavings, amethyst crystal for the ones we're making, copper coil and resin, all just in a puck. So any shape works. And I know that it's scary working with resin at first and a little nerve-wracking, but you just follow the directions, read it first thoroughly, and just follow the directions on your resin and you will be happy with the results. I have the easiest recipe on my site, so check it out. And if you really hate resin, which many people do, you can actually take a crystal, a quartz crystal, even a small one like this. This is my miniature one, but you can make bigger ones too, and make what's called an obelix. The obelix, I also link to on my site, is an atmospheric cleaner that works with the sun's rays. This actually is a little bit more mysterious to me how it works. Orgonite makes more sense to me. This is something that was invented in 2010, but it does work, and the videos that I've seen on it show how it works, and I've been using them and they are amazing. It's a quartz crystal wrapped in gold leaf, silver, copper, aluminum, and iron wires. And this was invented by a man in Switzerland named Ea. And he invented it because he was making Orgonites, but he found that he thought the crystal didn't want to get lost in there. He wanted to make something where the crystal could be out, exposed, and he wanted to see an end to the chemtrails more than anything. And this came to him in some divine inspiration, the idea of just wrapping the metals around the crystal and eliminating the resin completely. And it does something to cohere the sun's rays, and he has videos about it, and yet, as of yet, it's mysterious to me how it does it, but it does it. It works like Orgonite to dispel chemtrails. he makes a distinction that it doesn't transmute EMF in the same way that orgonite does. It's an atmospheric cleaner, strictly, is what he says. And I know I have a colleague in Switzerland, also another person in Switzerland, who makes obelixes and has actually developed orgonite accumulators for his obelixes, which has made them even more powerful. Switzerland is virtually chemtrail free now. The organ accumulator for the obelix? Well, he invented his own device, and he's the first person and the only person I know of to use it, which takes the obelix, and around it he uses metal mesh and layers of mesh, metal, and plastic, and just surrounds it. It's very rough. And he surrounds the obelix with this, but still has the crystal exposed to the sun's rays, and he's finding it just blasts the sky clean. So these are all just new uses for this technology. I really do feel that there's a lot to be learned here. I see it working, and I'm going to continue the research and experiment with it for the next many years, for the rest of my life. I want to collect at least 10 years of results. I have a year and a half of photographic, satellite, and written results of what we've seen, which is the best I can do with what I have. I can take a few more questions, and if they're not kicking us out, we can talk a little more. Oh, my website is thekembo.com. Thank you. I have cards in the other room that you can check out. So you know, it's www.thekembo.com. And I have a lot of stuff there you can look up on orgone. I have the basics on chemtrails. I have the basics on EMF, just to understand it. To me, the most important thing is that we eliminate these problems. So I kind of just dive right into it now, into the orgone energy, because why live with it? Why live with chemtrails? Why live with EMF? Do you have another question?
Shannon, I'm really impressed with all the gifting that, passing forward and so on. Do you have a donate button on your website? How on earth do you do this, honestly? It's incredible. So I just thought I'd highlight that. Fantastic.
I will add one, because we really do need the help. We've been funding it ourselves 100%. Occasionally we get a gift, so people do donate, but yes, I think that you have a very good idea. Thank you. I really appreciate the support. So thank you very much. I think that that's it, unless you guys have any more questions. This is a basic intro into orgone energy. And on Sunday, we're going to have a panel where you're going to get to hear other people who do the same work, talk about their experiences, how they do it, what they use, any unusual encounters they've had in their gifting, which I have. Gifting is a very exciting world. Gifting orgonite it's a liberating experience. So to conclude, oh, do I have a question before I conclude? If there's time, I definitely love to talk. Here, you can talk into the mic.
Thank you. I heard about the Oregon technology. I also had some muscle testing done, applied kinesiology. I like the technology, but I got like a negative result from it. I wonder what can respond to that. Some of the Oregon, I haven't done the products about it.
What kind of work did you have done with orgone?
The devices and some of the other technologies with it. Okay. And I just thought maybe you can comment on that.
Well, I just use orgonite, and orgonite doesn't have any negative effects, but it is true that the original orgone devices, and I'm not sure what kind of devices they used on you, but the original Cloudbuster invented by Wilhelm Reich actually could really make a person sick if it was incorrectly used. It would have to be operated by a professional. And the reason is you're drawing in dangerous energy and transmuting it. So with his Cloudbuster, one of his team members got very, very sick during an operation where they were drawing toxic energy out of the atmosphere. And he became very debilitated to the point where he couldn't do the work anymore. So in the drawing of negative, dangerous energy, because we're talking about energies that are toxic to us, in mostly manifesting as EMF daily lives, but there are a lot of these dangerous energies out there. If you're absorbing it, you could be very negatively impacted. Orgonite itself only just releases positive energy, healing energy, but you do have to be careful. The other thing is, with an orgone accumulator, Dr. James DeMeo has worked with these, and he's worked with orgone energy for decades. And he's continuing Wilhelm Reich's research. He says it's very unsafe to use an orgone accumulator in a city or in an environment that has a lot of deadly orgone radiation, cell phone towers, and all this stuff that we have around us, the Wi-Fi, the smart meters, because if you're using an orgone accumulator when there's too much deadly orgone, it will accumulate that. So we have to be careful. We do have to be careful. There are ways it can hurt. Orgonite itself can't hurt, unless when you're throwing it out the window of your car, you hit someone. I actually almost had one hit me. It fell out of my bike basket into the road, and a car ran it over, and it shot in the air, just like lightning speed. I was freaked out. But that's the worst that's ever happened. I mean, with that, there's been bizarre encounters in the gifting world. And we'll talk more about that at the Orgone Energy Panel, because you are watched. There are entities and people that don't want us doing this. They want the dangerous energy. They thrive on it. They suck our energy, our life energy out of us and keep us depressed, but we turn it around. We turn it around with our own love. That's exactly right. Another question? I can't believe I have all this time to talk. Do I have time to talk, or am I done? No, 25 minutes. Okay. I'm done. Thank you, guys. I just want you guys to know, thank you so much. It's you that can heal these problems. Thank you guys so much.